Morning, students. Welcome. Mr. Charles here, and I'll accompany you with this IGCSE on my session number 4. Please go to your course book, page 120, Family Holidays, a book by Anne Tyler entitled A Spool of Blue Thread. Every year, for as long as she can remember, Janie Whitshank's summer vacations have been spent in a rented house on a secluded beach on the Delaware coast with her parents, Red and Abby, and her sister, Amanda. Each year, another family rents the same sort of house next to them. In this scene, the one we're about to read, Janie is on the porch with her husband, Hugh, when their holiday neighbors arrive again. Let's read together. The next door people are back, Janie called, stepping in from the screen porch. Next door was almost the only house as unassuming as theirs was, and the people she was referring to had been renting it for at least as long as the Whitshanks had been renting theirs. Oddly enough, though, the two families never socialized. They smiled at each other if they happened to be out on the beach at the same time, but they didn't speak. And although Abby had once or twice debated inviting them over, Red always voted her down. Leave things as they were, he told her. Less chance of any unwelcome intrusions into the future. Even Amanda and Janie, on the lookout during the early days for playmates, had hung back shyly, because the next door people's two daughters always brought friends of their own. Besides, they were slightly older. So for all these years, 36 now, the Whitshanks had watched from a distance, while the slender young parents next door grew thicker through the middle and their hair turned grey, and their daughters changed from children to young women. One summer, in the late 90s, when the daughters were still in their teens, it was noticed that the father of the family never once went down to the water, spending the week instead lying under a blanket in a chaise longue on their deck. And the summer after that, he was no longer with them. A muted, sad little group the next door people had been that year, when always before they had seemed to enjoy themselves. But they did come, and they continued to come. The mother taking her early morning walks along the beach alone now, the daughters in the company of boyfriends who metamorphosed into husbands, by and by, and then a little boy appearing and a little girl. The grandson has brought a friend this year, Janie reported. Oh, that makes me want to cry. Cry? What for? Hugh asked her. It's the circularity, I guess. When we first saw the next door people, the daughters were the ones bringing friends. And now the grandson is. And it all starts all over again. You sure have given these folks a lot of thought, eh? Hugh said. Well, they are us, in a way, Janie said. Difficult vocabulary explained. Unassuming means modest. Intrusions means interference, to interfere in one's business. Slender, slim, skinny. Chaise longue, it's a French word, or French combined word, and it is a kind of a chair that you put in a swimming pool or in the sea for swimming, for sitting on. Metamorphosed is a strong word, and it means changed or transformed. Reading exercise, page 121. Pause the video now, try to solve these exercises, and it should take you about 15 to 20 minutes, and then come back. Let's do them together now. Question 1. For how many years have the Whitshanks family been renting their beach house? Well, it explicitly say 36, for 36 years. Question 2. Identify 2 ways in which the next door family is similar to the Whitshanks. First, they are and they have kids of the same generation, slightly older, they stated, so more or less the same generation, but maybe 1 or 2 years older. And they, also the parents, are of the same generation. They have the same taste on how to spend their holidays by going to the same place. They have the same choice not to socialize with each other. Both families have decided not to socialize with each other. Question 3. Explain in your own words why does Janie say they are us in a way. This is partially opinionated, but more or less it is established on the previous question. Since they share all the mentioned attributes in question 2, that they are of the same generation, they decide to spend their vacation the same way, and both families decide not to socialize. They are them, they mirror each other in a way. It is only logical for them to be similar. But Janie's husband did not take time to notice that, while she did, and announced it to him. Question 4. Reread the lines from 20 to 35 and explain in your own words what does Janie mean by circularity of life. Observe this picture. Take a minute and we'll answer this question together. This is a picture of a mother that is pregnant at the top left, and then another woman that is holding the clothes of the first woman in her hands. And between these two extremes, you have the woman giving birth and then raising the child to be a girl, and then this girl growing up, then taking care of her mother getting older, and then very much older, and then dies. Imagine this at the bottom right. This woman now, the used to be fetus, is now a mature woman, gets pregnant, and then gives birth to a girl or to a boy. The circularity of life is that there's a repetition of actions over a course of time in the exact way that they are performed. You, for example, have watched your parents as a child taking care of their parents, your grandparents. And then you will grow up to take care of your parents, and your child will witness how you do that, and you will remember how you used to witness that in comparison to your grandparents. This is the circle of life, that it repeats itself. Janie has watched the family's daughters, when they were young, bring their friends to play. Now, the daughters have had boyfriends, then married, had children, and now these children are bringing their friends. Writing to express thoughts, feelings, and imagination. In the IGCSE exam, in the writing section and parts of the reading section, you have a couple of writing tasks, and they will tackle your ability to discuss people's opinions and to describe their experiences and express your thoughts and feelings. You will have to slip into someone's shoes. You have to imagine yourself being that person and write from their own point of view, not yours, but you use your own words. If the question states use your own words, minimize, if not abolish, the use of the words from the text. Focus on using solely your words. The narrative question in section B in paper 2, directed writing. In section B, you will be asked to write a narrative or descriptive among other couple of choices. If you're asked to write a narrative, your focus will be on unleashing your imagination. Imagine a situation, imagine a story, narrate it. While if you're asked to write a descriptive piece, this will enable you to focus on your thoughts and feelings rather than imagination. Now turn to page 122, please. Family Values by William Saroyan. This is an American/Armenian writer who lived in America, died, I think, in the 1980s, 1981, 83. Let's read. The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse. One day back there, in the good old days when I was 9, and the world was full of every imaginable kind of magnificence, and life was still a delightful and mysterious dream. My cousin Murad, who was considered crazy by everybody who knew him except me, came to my house at 4 in the morning and woke me up by tapping on the window of my room. Aram, he said. I jumped out of bed and looked out of the window. Couldn't believe what I saw. It wasn't morning yet, but it was summer, and with daybreak not many minutes around the corner of the world, it was light enough for me to know I wasn't dreaming. My cousin Murad was sitting on a beautiful white horse. I stuck my head out of the window and rubbed my eyes. Yes, he said in Armenian, it is a horse. You're not dreaming. Make it quick if you want to ride. I knew my cousin Murad enjoyed being alive more than anybody else who had ever fallen into the world by mistake. But this was more than even I could believe. In the first place, my earliest memories had been memories of horses, and my first longings had been longings to ride. This was the wonderful part. In the second place, we were poor. This was the part that wouldn't permit me to believe what I saw. We were poor. We had no money. Our whole tribe was poverty-stricken. Every branch of the Garo-Glanian family was living in the most amazing and comical poverty in the world. Amazing and comical poverty. Nobody could understand where we ever get money enough to keep us with food in our bellies. Not even the old men of the family. Most important of all, though, we were famous for honesty. We had been famous for our honesty for something like 11 centuries. Even when we had been the wealthiest family in what we liked to think was the world. We were proud first, honest next, and after that we believed in right and wrong. None of us would take advantage of anybody in the world, let alone steal. Consequently, even though I could see the horse, so magnificent, even though I could smell it, so lovely, even though I could hear it breathing, so exciting, I couldn't believe the horse had anything to do with my cousin Murad, or with me, or with any of the other members of our family, asleep or awake, because I knew my cousin Murad couldn't have bought the horse, and if he couldn't have bought it, he must have stolen it, and I refused to believe he had stolen it. No member of the Garoglanian family could be a thief. I stared first at my cousin, and then at the horse. There was a pious stillness and humor in each of them, which on the one hand delighted me, and on the other frightened me. Murad, I said, where did you steal this horse? Leap out of the window, he said, if you want to ride. It was true then, he had stolen the horse. There was no question about it. He had come to invite me to ride or not as I chose. Well, it seemed to me stealing a horse for a ride was not the same thing as stealing something else, such as money. For all I know, maybe it wasn't stealing at all. If you were crazy about horses the way my cousin Murad and I were, it wasn't stealing. It wouldn't become stealing until we offered to sell the horse, which of course I knew we would never do. Let me put on some clothes, I said. All right, he said, but hurry. I leaped into my clothes. Notice so far we don't have a single quotation mark, single speech mark. I jumped down to the yard from the window and leaped up onto the horse behind my cousin Murad. That year we lived at the edge of the town, on Walnut Avenue. Behind our house was the country, vineyards, orchards, irrigation ditches, and country roads. In less than 3 minutes, we were on Olive Avenue, and then the horse began to trot. The air was new and lovely to breathe. The feel of the horse running was wonderful. My cousin Murad, who was considered one of the craziest members of our family, began to sing. Let's analyze some elements in this text. First of all, the writer did not use any speech marks, and this could be interpreted as an evidence of the memory effect. He wants to narrate the memory that is obviously loved to him and has sentimental effects on him, that he has no time to write the speech marks. So he's just maybe enforcing the idea that this is a stream of consciousness. This is just a flowing of ideas because of a memory. The WH elements, when the story is set, this is indicated in the quotations of when I was 9 and 4 in the morning, summertime. Who was involved? It was Aram and Murad Garoglanian, their last Armenian name. And where was it set? It is at the edge of town, and we know the Walnut Avenue, and reaching the Olive Avenue after that. The boys' personalities. Murad sounds greedy and passionate, pushy. He keeps telling Aram, come on, go outside. Do you want to ride or not? He seems passionate. And we assume that he's greedy because we still don't know the origin of the horse yet. We don't know unless we read the story on. Did he steal it or did he find it somewhere? While Aram narrates how honest and anxious he is, and how preservant of the beliefs of his Armenian tribe that had 3 golden rules: to be proud, to never steal, and to distinguish right from wrong, and to follow right. Writing to entertain, short story, page 123 and 24. The following elements are what is required, or what are the requirements for the writing of a short story. First of all, think of who are you writing to. Think about your audience. Is it of the same age group? Is it of the same tendency of the subject you're talking about? Is it of the same, let's say, tribe you belong to? Is it of the same interests? Do you share interests together? Think of who are you writing to before you start writing. What is your main subject? Decide on what's the main idea, what's the main focus of your piece of writing. The place and the time frame. This was an extract from a larger story that definitely sets the place and time frame more vividly. We definitely don't just get hanged with edge of town and the avenue of Walnut and then 4 in the morning of a summer day. There are specific details for sure. This gives less of a foggy view in the mind of the reader that we need him or her to imagine. When you set up a story, we need specific details in order for the reader to relate, to imagine. Main characters. Determine who your main characters are and state their names. Decide on which POV, point of view, you're going to follow. First person point of view, the I and the we. Second person point of view, you. Or third person point of view, he, she, they. Construct a plot and decide on the ending. If you remember the curve that looks a lot like a triangle that we talked about in term 1 and 2, that you have to start with introduction and then rising action and climax and then falling action and then conclusion. Make sure you decide on how your story is going to end, and make sure you construct this plot as much as possible, or at least the climax as much as possible, so you know when or where you are heading at each point. Minimize the number of characters. Also, we mentioned that earlier, to avoid confusion, because the larger number of characters you have, the more effort you ask of the reader to memorize your characters, and then sometimes lose focus on the ideas or the themes you're tackling, just trying to remember who this character was. Name your characters and make sure, give them names and make sure they're not so similar. So don't go with, let's say, Joe and then Mo, So, and Lau. Any sounding names that are similar, this brings further confusion to the reader. Add interesting features to the characters, make them interesting, make the characters lively. We need the reader to relate to the characters you are depicting. Decide on a lead character. Decide on a main hero. Give them a flaw. And this is the anti-hero. We have in the old traditional novels and movies the hero figure, the hero that is indestructible, the hero that will definitely prevail at the end, will win, because he has or she has ultimate intelligence, ultimate strength like Superman, or ultimate beauty. But the modern type of writing, modern fiction, has introduced something called anti-hero. He's a hero, but that is flawed. A hero that it is a lead character, but it is a bit miserable. It is a bit of an outcast to the society around him or her. And this is done to make you, as a reader or a viewer, relate more to this hero. I don't believe that any of us relate to Superman more than we can relate, let's say, to an ordinary worker that leads let's say, a revolution against the government, or a revolution against the norms of bad norms of society, or against a secret organization, a regular person who suffers terrible um, everyday features that we can feel the same way about. Remember the omniscient, that is the third person point of view. Omniscient means it, he or she exists everywhere, every time, or any time. This is the know all, the writer that knows all details. So when you are writing the third person point of view, you are being an omniscient writer. You know all about your characters. Um, Not like your characters, they don't know what's about to happen, but you do. Don't ramble, keep it concise. Remember that this is a short story, not a fully functional story. We need it to be concise to deliver a quick effect on the reader. Use of five senses, also to increase relation to your story. Write, read, and proofread. The importance of revision is stressed in all types of pieces of writing, actually, not just the short story. But it has special importance here for you to proofread, to read from the point of view of a reader, not a writer. Remember speech marks. Although our friend William did not use speech marks for a reason of his own, as we said, it could be the imagination or the memory flow thing. But you, as a writer, or all of us as writers, we should use speech marks. And they have a couple of rules. Don't forget to indent the first line when you are using speech. Don't forget to start a new line for each time a change in speaker occurs. So let's say John says, you indent, then John says, etc. And then if you want to change speaker to a different person, go to a different line. Go to a new line now. Don't write it next to the John quotation. End your pieces of dialogue with a punctuation mark before you put the speech mark, whether it is a full stop, comma, exclamation mark, or question mark. Do this before you close the quotation with a quotation mark or a speech mark. The task for today, think about what happens next to Aram and Murad and the horse. Jot a short story, paragraph, taking into consideration the points we have just discussed together. We're done for today. Thank you very much for listening. Stay safe and keep up your good work.